Hello everyone, and welcome to Yoshi 1 Kenobi's Demonic Pact Tinybones MTG Arena Historic Deck, where we play the new card from Amonkhet Remastered, Demonic Pact. A 4-mana enchantment with 4 modes. You can't choose the same mode more than once. First one, you drain anything for 4. The second one, you make your opponent discard 2 cards. The third one, you draw 2 cards. And last one, you lose the game. Each of these modes is extremely powerful in its own way. Except that the last one makes you lose the game. So in this deck, what we want to do is put the Demonic Pact in play, and then flicker it back with Yorion the Sky Nomad, or sacrifice it to Doom Foretold after we've gotten the full value of the other 3 modes. So it's a very powerful enchantment in the right hands. We are playing it with Tinybones, Trinket Thief, another very fun card that was added with Jumpstart. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent has discarded a card this turn, you draw a card and lose a life. And you can get to pay 6 mana, and if your opponent has no cards in hand, your opponent loses 10 life. Now that's some serious damage. And why are we playing the 2 cards together? Well, Demonic Pact has this mode where target opponent discards 2 cards, and Tinybones really thrives on the discards. We also get to play with Thoughtseize, a new card from Amonkhet Remastered, a new old card again, and where you get to pick a card from your opponent's hand and discard it. Now, a lot of these are very advantageous because you get to make your opponent discard, then play Tinybones, and then you get to draw at the end step of your turn. So you make sure that your opponent has nothing in the way to destroy your Tinybones to ensure that you get that draw power. Furthermore, a lot of times your opponent is just going to be able to keep a card in hand and prevent you from activating Tinybones' ability. But with Demonic Pact, the ability to discard 2 cards at the start of your turn means that you don't have to spend mana on it. You can spend the full mana to pay 6 and activate Tinybones' ability to drain your opponent for 10. So it puts your opponent in this very hard spot where if they play their cards, you get to activate Tinybones. If they keep their cards, Demonic Pact will get rid of them, and Tinybones will get to activate its ability and do its thing. So in terms of discards, to support Tinybones, we're playing Thoughtseize. It's an all-star that we will be seeing in pretty much every deck that plays black and historic for the foreseeable future. We play some Burglar Rats. It makes your opponent discard, synergizes with Tinybones. Also, you get to sacrifice it to Doom Foretold or Yorion the Sky Nomad. We'll also play the Demonic Pact as the discard engine. And Doom Foretold will make your opponent discard a card, and you will draw a card if your opponent doesn't have a permanent in play, which won't trigger Tinybones now that I think about it. Oh, no. Yeah, actually it will trigger Tinybones during your opponent's turn. So it works both ways. Cool. So, in terms of ways to remove Demonic Pact, as we've said, Doom Foretold, very strong because it allows you to remove pretty much anything your opponent has on the battlefield, as long as your opponent only has a few non-land permanents in play that are non-tokens. Yorion is also a way to reset your Demonic Pact, which is very powerful. So the rest is synergies with Doom Foretold and Yorion. So we play Trial of Ambition because it's an enchantment that sticks. Kills off an opponent's creature, and you get to sacrifice the enchantment for the Doom Foretold or for Yorion. Elspeth Conquers Death, very strong removal spell for big things. Again, we get to reset it with Yorion, we get to revive a Tinybones. It's just a very powerful card, as has been proven in Standard. Oath of Kaya, another piece of removal that stays on the battlefield to be sacrificed or reused by our pieces. And to wrap everything up, we play 3 copies of Murderous Rider as removal for creatures or planeswalkers. In terms of our lands, we play the 12 dual lands, as well as a pair of Castle Lockwains, and 5 plains and 5 swamps. And this completes the deck for the Demonic Pact of Tinybones. Now let's see it in action. We are playing Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historic against 30 pirates. A pirate sturdy. It's either a pirate who's 30 years old or 30 pirates whose age is unknown. Well, we'll start with the Temple of Silence, because we need our black source. We get a second black source, which we will keep. We have a lot of discard in this hand. We're just missing a Tinybones. Opponent plays a Gutter Bones, not quite as good as Tinybones, but still has bones to it. We'll cast a Burglar Rat, discarding our opponent's Fabled Passage. Opponent is playing Sacrifice. That's alright. We are going to Burglar Rat our opponent. We Burglar Rat before the Thoughtseize so that our opponent doesn't have the information that we are going to Thoughtseize. Blood Artist or a Spiteful Prankster. As long as it's your turn, it has first strike, never another creature dies, deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. Alright, so our opponent is playing Blood Artist type of tribal deck. That thing can attack. Opponent's not really in a good position to attack. We have Burglar Rats to block for days. Opponent plays the Prankster. Opponent could sack both creatures, probably a bad idea. We have a Castle Lochwain. And we... Oh, I don't have a swamp. Alright. Oh. We'll go for plan B, which is passing the turn and Murderous Ridering. I was getting ready to cast my Demonic Pact, with no way out of it at the current time. Alright, your Prankster can attack. Do I care about the Priest of Forgotten Gods? I think I do. I think that that's what I want to destroy. Prankster, it's a 3/2 for Striker. I don't overly care about it. Yeah, I can take some damage. Like the tooltip says, your life total is a resource. Use it wisely. Tinybones. Let's cast Demonic Pact. Godless Shrine. Tapped and passed your opponent. Our turns are now counted until we lose to the Pact. But before that, we'll have the ability to leverage the full power of the Demonic Pact. Opponent keeps on drawing. Ooh, that was a painful amount of cards. That's alright, we'll take the beats. Kinda want the card draw here. I'd rather not choose the you lose the game right away. Let's start by killing off the Prankster. Getting back some life. Let's pressure opponent by attacking with the rats. Opponent takes damage. This does not look like a deck that wants to play board wipes. So we will go with a Murderous Rider, land tap, Tinybones, and pass the turn. If our opponent passes and we have Tinybones on the battlefield and our opponent has 2 cards or less, we can make our opponent discard with the Demonic Pact, and then we'll finish him off with the Tinybones trigger. Chandra, Acolyte of Flames. Nothing decent in the graveyard to revive. Claim the Firstborn on the Murderous Rider. Will allow our opponents to gain back 2 life. Opponent gets back some tokens. Attacks us with everything. We would take 2, 4, 5, 6. I don't think our opponent has any trick that would pump one of these. It would be a shame. So I'll take the free block. Opponent's up to 12. Elemental gets sacked. Opponent discards. Down to 0 from the Demonic Pact. Tinybones triggers, draining our opponent, and we finish him off using the Tinybones Demonic Pact combo. And that's how it's done on MTG Arena Historic. We are playing Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historic against Benjadadov 8038. What does Benjadov 8038 is going to play? We will find out. We have a Tinybones, a pair of Demonic Pacts, and Trial of Ambition, as well as our Doom Foretold. We'll keep this on the draw. We'll draw into lands. Opponent Thoughtseize. Oh, that's going to be a Tinybones, probably, or Trial of Ambition. Depends on what our opponent's playing. Doom Foretold goes down. We'll play Swamp and pass. Yorion's a pretty good draw, although not right now. Let's try. Oh no, we do not want an Elspeth Conquers Death right now. We want lands. Opponent's playing mono black. 5-color mono black. The best kind, I guess. Let's keep our Tinybones. There's no real reason to run it out now, especially since the opponent is probably playing some level of a control-ish shell. Golos. Golos needs 7 mana to activate, which means we have time to run out a Demonic Pact and pass the turn. So ideally your opponent plays the land and passes the turn, and then we make him discard 2 cards and play Tinybones to draw. Chromatic Lantern. Opponent is on 7 mana. Mastermind's Acquisition. Nice and scary that we're going to devoid our opponent of all resources, unless our opponent fetches something like non-burial rights. You'll find out soon enough what our opponent has chosen, as we make target opponent discard 2 cards. Thought Distortion. Yeah, that could have hurt. Trial of Ambition. You discard that Pilgrim. We Tinybones. And you go to cry in a corner as we draw a Burglar Rat. Just need to be careful, because our Demonic Pact only has 1 more turn of good stuff. Oh no, we still have 2 turns. Perfect, let's draw 2 cards. And we could actually activate Tinybones here. We activate Tinybones, we ping our opponent for 4, and then we out of Kaya our opponent's face next turn. I like that game plan. Tinybones for 10. What you got? I mean, come on, that's just scooping. I guess you get to draw the card off of the castle. Solemn Simulacrum. And our opponent sees the death in the face of the Tinybones with the Demonic Pact. We are playing Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historics against Robidashit. And we have a pretty good hand. We will keep this. The Shock Thoughtseize is tempting. A little expensive on life. So I'll play the Godless Shrine tapped. And go with Burglar Rat and then turn 3 Thoughtseize. Potentially Trial of Ambition if our opponent's aggressive. Oh, Temple of Silence. Alright, we'll just Thoughtseize. Fauna Shaman, Knight of Reliquary, Rune Map, Excavator, Elspeth Conquers Death. Alright, that's interesting. Opponent only has 1 2-drop, a pair of 3-drops. I don't care about the 2-drops so much because we have the trial, so let's take away the Elspeth Conquers Death, which is going to burn our Demonic Pact in late game. Second rat. No, one rat's enough. You want some of our bigger payoffs, especially since we have a Demonic Pact in hand. You want to start digging towards a Yorion or Doom Foretold or Tinybones. All good options. One should play land and Fauna Shaman, which will allow us to Trial of Ambition or Burglar Rat. I think the Trial's probably better. The fewer creatures our opponent has on the battlefield, the better the Trial of Ambition is. So I'm not sure what our opponent would want to fetch with it. But fetching a creature can be pretty scary. Fauna Shaman has been sacrificed. Knight of the Reliquary is likely to enter the battlefield. And then we will go Demonic Pact, and I hope to draw into a Yorion. I think that that's our game plan. With the draw 4 from the Demonic Pact, we should be able to reach one. Knight of the Reliquary. Well, let us begin. Demonic Pact. And pass. Well, it still has 3 unknown cards in hand. Fabled Passage. So with the Fabled Passage and Knight of Reliquary, Reliquary can go up to 4. And our opponent can ramp up to 5. The good old temporary ramp, which our opponent chose not to use. Either because our opponent doesn't know about it. Field of the Dead? Okay. You may play land cards from your graveyard. Let's kill off the Knight of Reliquary before it grows out of proportion. Demonic Pact number 2. Temple of Silence. Murderous Strider. Now we're really digging for Yorion right now. Pretty hard. Blast Zone. But if you would destroy our Demonic Pacts, it'd be great. Two charge counters. Alright. Well, you will discard 2 cards. Start there. And we will deal with the Excavator. Let's just drain our opponent of all of their resources. And then we get to Burglar Rat to draw out the last card. And we get to activate Castle Lochwain to draw a card. We have the draw for next turn. Burglar Rat. Last card goes to the bin. And we'll pass the turn. So we have a lot of draws here. 6 cards. We need a Doom Foretold or a Yorion. Because I don't think we can end the game. So we have 6 draws, 6 targets. Our odds really aren't that good now that I look at them. Opponent puts another charge counter on Blast Zone. Summons a Scavenging Ooze. We draw and we miss. A draw 2. A draw 2. Then we hit a Yorion as the first card. That was anticlimactic. But we'll take it. I mean, it's still going to allow us to win. I think I just want to cast that. Bye bye Burglar Rat. Both Demonic Pacts will reset. And the Trial of Ambition will make you sacrifice that Scavenging Ooze but I get a land drop first. Boom! Take that, opponent. Of course, you get a blast zone to blast away our Demonic Pact, but they've done their work. We're up all the way to 5 cards in hands, 2 creatures on the battlefield. You have to sacrifice a land to get rid of our pacts. You should admit defeat. You can cast a free Doom Foretold. Draws us a card. At this point I wouldn't be opposed to getting a Tinybones. Start digging. Try and end the game. Thoughtseize something. Their opponent is likely to play their last card. Dryad of Elysian Cove. That's exilable via Elspeth Conquers that. I'll take that. Let's keep on digging for Tinybones. Although it shouldn't be necessary now. Now that we have the extra 2/2, we have our clock slightly faster. It's kind of an embarrassment of riches at this point. That's what happens when you live life on the edge with the Demonic Pact. I mean, if you're willing to make a magical pact with that type of creatures, then you're willing to take risks. And that's what this deck does. You take risks and get rewarded. Or punished heavily. I mean, whichever. But I must say, I like the rewards of this game. Rabbit the sheet. You resigned. Because you saw the writing on the wall. And that's how it's done with Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historic. We are playing Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historic against Slick Little. And we have a bunch of expensive enchantments and tree lands. We'll keep this because we're on the play. It's not the type of hands that we want, but it's just good enough to keep. On the play. Would not keep that on the draw. Would be too slow on the draw. We wouldn't even be able to get a draw, we'd get a loss. Opponent has a blue source in play. We drew an Oath of Kaya, which is pretty good. Gives us an earlier play. Fairy Miscreant enters the battlefield. It's going to be backed up. Oh! Alright. So opponent isn't playing mono blue tempo. Let's kill off that fairy. Gain some life. Mostly setting up a Doom Foretold. Oh, opponent's playing rogues. That deserves a nice. It's different. I like it. We got milled for 4. Mostly lands. I want a Demonic Pact here. And pass the turn back. Mostly because I want to make our opponent discard. Our opponent's starved on lands. It's not going to be a very interesting game. I'll kill off the Enforcer. If our opponent playing counter magic, we might be in trouble. Discard that to the bottom, cast the Doom Foretold to get rid of that Fairy Miscreant. Opponent counters. The opponent is trying to make us lose with the Demonic Pact. Let's draw 2 cards. We'll play our land and play Doom Foretold. Opponent counters. Alright, well, you'll sacrifice your creature. We'll pass the turn. Teferi's Tutelage. Alright, so our opponent doesn't have a counter. We get milled for 2. So opponent's playing mill. Opponent will discard 2 cards. Had me scared there for a second, opponent. We are going to cast Yorion. Flicker these 2. We get out of Kayau. And then we pass the turn. We get milled. Mill Rogues. With Drowns in the lock. Our opponent wasn't starved that much. We'd actually be in trouble. You discard 2. Thief Guild's Enforcer. That's alright. We'll mill 2. Fairy Vandal. We'll kill the Thief Guild's Enforcer. You may have the Vandal. Then you will discard cards. You will cast Tinybones, because we want to draw. Attack with Yorion. Opponent takes 4. We draw. Opponent draws, we mill. We will kill... We'll deal damage to our opponent. Play the Castle Lock, Wayne. Attack your opponent for 5. Kill our opponent. And that's how it's done with Tinybones Demonic Pact. Opponent had us scared there, countering our first 2 ways of removing the Demonic Pact. We almost fell to the downsides of the pact, but we won with the upsides of the Tinybones. We are playing Demonic Pact Tinybones on MTG Arena Historic against I Am Banned. And we have a fantastic hand. We have, well, we could turn 1 Thoughtseize, but it's probably better to wait to Tinybones Thoughtseize on turn 3. Although, well, let's see what our opponent's playing. Ooh, and that's a nice background. It's the new Amonkhet background. Kinda feel like playing that Scryland. Let's play the Scryland. I'll scry that to the bottom and pass the turn. Get a feeling our opponent is playing mono blue tempo. Because it's an island. And islands indicate blue. Let's see if I'm right. Other options are Sultai, Teamer, and basically anything else that plays blue. I mean, this is historic after all. Can mean all sorts of things. Based on the amount of time our opponent is taking to play his lands, I'll assume that it's playing some kind of Nexus deck. I know Nexus is banned, but you know. Alright. Ooh, Grixis. Bolas. Let's see Grixis Bolas build. Well, let's Thoughtseize you. Cry, Cry, Languish, Bolas, Enter the God Eternals, and Fae of Wishes. Alright, Super Control. Well, you don't have the second black source, so the cries are useless. Enter the God Eternals is still quite a far cry. So let's remove the Fae of Wishes. Or Bolas. Fae of Wishes. And I'll cast Tinybones to draw a card. I love this Thoughtseize Tinybones combo. It's just very solid. Next turn we have the Burglar Rat. Opponent removes our Tinybones. It puts him into exile. That's okay. That's why we play Burglar Rats. Making you discard a Cry or Languish. And we'll end the turn. Kinda want the opponent to play Bolas here. Bolas. So we have to exile a card from our hand. Trial Ambition seems like the right thing to exile. Don't think our opponent is playing very many creatures. Alright. So I wanted to cast Elspeth Conquers Death. But now I realize that I simply don't have the mana to cast it. So I'll go with Plan B. And bring a swift end to the Dragon God. We'll attack with the Burglar Rat, bringing the beats down on our opponent, who's now down to 17 life, thinking about Enter the God Eternals, making us mill some lands, which we would have liked. That's alright. Well, how about we Doom Foretold you? Yeah, we'll draw a card, make you discard a card. Seems good. Because your token isn't going to do anything about it. Now we have a token. Your token is mightier than our token. But that's okay. Because our token has vigilance. Our token is dead. Alright, 5 mana. Nothing to exile with, and Elspeth Conquers Death. Could cast the Murderous Rider. We could cast Note of Kaya. I think we're just gonna Oath of Kaya. Nah, let's go for the Murderous Rider. That way if our opponent keeps on attacking, then we swing back and lifelink for a bunch. Opponent Thought Erasure is probably the Yorion. It's really the only card that does stuff in our hand, but Elspeth Conquers That kind of counterpicks pretty much anything our opponent would draw. So our opponent decides to go with the Elspeth Conquers Death. Swings at us for 4, we go down to 9. Which really isn't too bad. Well, now we have double Oath of Kaya, which we will play. Means we have a Yorion play next turn. And we still have a threat on the board. It's not a big threat, but it is a threat. Narset. Narset will fetch. Opponent's on 4 lands. Opponent cannot play Bolas. We will make our opponent discard Bolas. And we'll increase the clock on our opponent. I'm blinking the Oath of Kaya. Probably should have attacked with a Murderous Rider first. That way I can blink it back in defense position. It's probably not gonna matter. Kill off Narset, because Narset is troublesome. And now we have a clock and we're in top deck mode. Opponent top decks a land. We get a Doom Foretold, which we will keep as a piece of removal. Swing for 8 points of exchange. We heal for 2, hit for 6. Might as well keep on attacking. And this is pretty much the doom for our opponent. Don't think there's anything that a tap out opponent can do. Make us sacrifice a Doom Foretold. Castle Lockwane is fantastic. We can swing with both creatures. Our opponent cannot let Yorion hit, so opponent has to chump block the Yorion. We'll take 2 on the downswing. And guess we pass the turn. And that is game. And that's how we win with Demonic Pact Tinybones without drawing the Demonic Pact. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe by clicking the Yoshi icon at the right of your screen. It doesn't cost you any mana, and it greatly helps to support this channel and keep the awesome videos coming.